Game day.
Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10. You're here with JP and Quentin. What's up, bro?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
You know it's going. Got a little bit of NFL news, got a little bit of MVP Pat news in the literal sense. He is now in the MVP running, which he should have been anyway, but he is now definitely in the MVP running after last week's game. And which is good to hear because he is the best player in the NFL. Ask Nick Wright, he'll tell you the same thing. But I mean, it's been a long time coming, given the fact that he's playing with guys that he hadn't played with before, other than Travis Kelce and McCole Hardman. Everybody's new, and he's doing a great job. And his legs are doing a lot of the work for him as well. So I'm happy that he's back in the race. He should be every year, but I think Rodgers is out for sure now. I mean, given his situation this year. So the rundown was Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. No, Mahomes, Hurts, Allen. Who else?
Lamar Jackson has been
Lamar
in the
Jackson,
talk.
little bit of the talk.
Especially that month he started off so hot.
Yeah, and then there was one other one. A couple of Tyreek Hill's actually in for MVP right now. And one other one. Oh, Joe Burrow is in there. And I got to give Joe Burrow some credit. Anybody with that offensive line should not have a winning record. So, hey, more power to the kid. He may not dress very well, but he's playing pretty good. So, I mean, I'm just glad to see, Pat's getting the recognition he should instead of the downplay of how great he actually is. Because there's nobody in the league that's better than him. It's hands down.
Yeah, really, we know that the MVP in this era is now a quarterback award, and it's probably going to go to the quarterback of the number one seed of either conference. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and for the rest of his career will always be involved in the MVP conversations because, he just is that great of a talent.
Yeah.
And with the injury to Josh Allen, which at the point of recording, we don't really have any update for, and we'll talk about that a little later. But with that, the fact that there's an injury there, that helps shift the market. And then you have what Patrick Mahomes displayed on Sunday Night Football in front of everybody, where he straight up, put the team on his back and carried them to that victory. The Chiefs offense wasn't doing anything until that 3rd and 17, where Patrick was just like, I'm doing this. Nothing is happening. The Chiefs offense were so stagnant. We're winning this game no matter what. And, we've heard all the comparisons to the Michael Jordan, where it's like when your team's not having it, Michael Jordan would just find that way. He would go out and he would carry the team. And there's that sort of Patrick Mahomes has that in him where if the team doesn't have it, I don't care. I'm going to get it with my legs. And some of his most iconic plays are like that.
Yeah.
So where it's just, he's going to figure out a way. And that's why he's in that MVP conversation, because without Patrick Mahomes, this team would not be where it is.
No.
It's plain and simple.
No. I mean, he's leading the league in touchdowns. He's
and passing yards.
And passing yards again. He's doing everything with his legs. He's carried 2 tons of the entire team on his shoulders last week. It's not the first time he's had to do it, but he's doing it, and he's doing it at a very high level. And really, when you really consider, he's still a very young quarterback. He's still young. It's very early in his career. So, yeah, he's 5 years in, but he's 4 years in as a starter. So you got to think of it from that perspective. He's not this guy that is 30 years old, 31 years old, and has been playing, for 10 years. So I think he deserves a lot more than what people give him credit for. I know a lot of people do this because they hate him. They don't hate him. They hate the fact that he's so damn good. And I understand that. I hated Peyton Manning for years. Not that I had any reason to not like the man. He just smoked us every year. He was that good. So and we were that bad. But he was just a very good quarterback. In fact, in my opinion, he was probably in that era the best quarterback there was. So during that time frame, better than Brady, in my opinion. And a lot of people's opinion for that matter. But he's just done so much that most people can't do. And I think Tua's name has been mixed up in it too a little bit because he's done so well coming off of such horrid years in the past. Now, granted, yes, they went out and they loaded him up with every weapon he could possibly ask for and then some. I get it. But you have to have weapons. If you're not a quarterback that can make people better, then you have to have the weapons that are already better, that can adapt very quickly. I mean, Mahomes is a different breed. He makes players better, so it doesn't affect him as much when he doesn't have top tier quarter or wide receivers out there on the field all the time. He's already made people better this year. He's done it his whole career. So I think he's just he's a little bit underrated and in a lot of people's eyes. And then there's a lot of hate in other people's, opinions and eyes because he's so good. And they didn't get him. And it's that simple. We've seen it year in and year out, whether it's media or it's fans of other teams or whatever. Oh, if we didn't have those if we had those weapons, this guy would be just as good. Well, I'd say, a lot of these teams are set up with some pretty good weapons and they're still not that good.
Yeah. I
So,
think part of it is just because Mahomes was so good so early that I think it's twofold. I think one, because he was so good so early in his first year as a starter, he sort of set the bar higher for himself when compared to other guys. So like for some other quarterbacks to win the MVP, because I think either subconsciously you see was like, oh, Mahomes does Mahomes things, so we in general push it off and it's like, that's just Mahomes. But if another guy does it, it's more impressive.
yeah.
I think the same thing stands for the MVP, where if Mahomes comes out, Mahomes almost has to be more than MVP to now win the award because he is so good and has been this good for his entire career that the bar is just higher for him.
Yes, his standards are just higher for him.
And I think the other thing is that on top of that, there's just like this expectation of it. So not only is, he's so good, the bar is higher for himself. It's on the flip side, there's the expectation, and people are just sort of like, they don't want to award the same player every year with the award. That's why it's so rare for somebody to get the MVP twice.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers did it, but that's just because if you look at what he did over the past 2 years, it was just that impressive.
Yeah.
And that's why every year coming in, the conversation was, oh, look at how, look at Josh Allen, look at all these guys, because it's boring for national media and narratives to be Mahomes is the best, end of story.
You know what sucks about that
that doesn't get clicks, it doesn't get eyeballs. So
but they did it for Brady
too.
And that's what annoys me is they did it for Brady for all those years. And regardless of who did what, didn't matter. Even with Mahomes doing what he did his first season, the youngest guy to win a Super Bowl, this, that, all the things that he has done, all the records that he has broken, they still jock Brady like none other, and they always have. I mean, Tony Romo, I like him as an announcer. I think he does a really good job, but he brings up Brady at least 4 or 5 times during every game, no matter what game it is. Brady could be sitting at home. He could be on a boat with Robert Cross or Ross or whatever his name is, Stephen Ross down in Florida. He could be anywhere, but well, that was Brady-esque. What do you mean that was Brady-esque? How is it Brady-esque? Mahomes just ran for 17 yards, third and 17. You'd never see Brady really do that. Not with those bricks he's got for feet. And he didn't even do it when he was younger. He doesn't have the coordination to run that well. Mahomes is just the way he fools defensive linemen and edges and linebackers that are 3 feet in front of him. And that's what, if you ever watch any of it, when he's running, these guys are 3 feet in front of him and they don't tackle him because they don't know what he's going to do. They don't know whether he's going to throw the ball, if he's going to juke them, if he's going to continue to run. They don't know what he's going to do. And he always, always, always has that trick in his mind, and he's able to do that with those guys. And I think it's just it's a very underrated talent that he has. So I'm just glad to see him back in the running, and I think he's going to continue to build upon this. And I got to be honest, I can't wait for another home away game. Um, I say that because I want to see our dominance as a team, and we just don't play as dominant at home. It's kind of been proven now. We've been talking about it for 2 years, but 3 years actually, but we just don't play as dominant. Yes, we win, but we don't play as hard. We don't play the full 4 quarters. We don't play like we're the team that we are. And it's when I had Tim Grunhard on the show, with him and I talked about it a little bit. And he said, yeah, it's very strange. He said, because it's one thing I noticed the same thing is that, back when he played, I was there, so I know we always played better at home. We were dominant. We had the crowd behind us, we had the noise behind us, we had everything, and it was just everybody just played so much better, at home versus on the road. It's different for us. I don't know. I actually talked to Tim prior to the show, and I asked him, I said, do you think it's because they like to just dominate people in their home stadium, or do you think it's because they're just away from the state, the home, they're away from their families, they get to sit in a hotel room where it's quiet, get the rest, they come off a plane, they go into a hotel, they get to go over the plays for the game, they get all that relaxation without the racket in their head. And he goes, I think it's a little bit of both. He goes, I think it's, Pat's very competitive, Kelsey's very competitive, and they want to go out and show out and make other teams look bad. And they also get he said, what it was like? He said, when you're away, it's quiet. You don't have the noise. You don't have you're not at home the night before the game. And he goes, I know that doesn't sound good. He said, but you're married. You know what it's like. It's very difficult to do things at home and get the rest and relaxation that you need when you're married and you got kids. And, everything else is in your ear. So it's just easier for them. They don't really turn on the TVs. They don't do any of that stuff. They just check their, they run their plays in their mind. They read their plays for the next day and they relax. So I think it's just a combination of the two, but they have got to get this home thing where they're playing a little bit more dominant at home. Because we have a few home games left, and I'd rather them not play so complacent at home against a team that they should really not be playing complacent against. That's just my only thing that I guess would be a critique on this team right now, is that I just wish they would play as dominant at home as they do on the road. And if they did that, they're unstoppable. And I think Tony is going to be a huge impact. I mean, just a little bit he was on the field, it was shown. He throwing great blocks.
Yeah, that was something that Andy Reid addressed actually in his press conference, is that he talked about how, you see the speed on the field, but he also talked about his blocking and his willingness to block. And, I think that's really cool to see a guy who comes in, doesn't really understand the playbook, and he comes in and you see him participating in the offense any way that he can.
Yeah.
And I know some of the people were worried about, these issues of like a diva wide receiver coming in. And for a guy that comes in here and, you're getting complimented on your blocking skills, that should relieve any sort of prior thoughts that you had on him, because the guy's coming out and is already sold into this offense. So if anybody thought that Tony was going to be a problem in the locker room, that right there should clear some of the issues that you thought that we were going to have, because he's already bought into this offense. A wide receiver doesn't go out and block the way he did. And you go back and look at the film. He only had 2 receptions, but he was on the field for more than a dozen plays.
Yeah.
And you can see him out there, blocking with good form, by the way.
I agree. So let's see. There's a little bit of OBJ talk going around again. Mark Gunnell is a friend of our show and our brand business. Reached out to OBJ on Twitter, and OBJ said it's definitely not out of the question to come to Kansas City. He just wants to win. We've talked about this for over a month now, that he was in the running with the Chiefs, kind of backed off a little bit. I am under the impression that he's going to end up in Dallas. from what I've heard, but that hasn't been set in stone yet. So maybe we'll see that happen. We don't know. He's going to be pretty down. I think he's going to be a help wherever he goes, and he definitely doesn't want to be the number one wide receiver. So that's even a better thing. He knows that he doesn't want to be that anymore. He wants to be that guy that comes in on third downs or, rotational piece that comes in and makes a difference. So
Was he ever a number one wide receiver?
with
I
the
mean,
Giants,
when he was with the Giants, Victor Cruz was there.
yeah, but he was on the other side. So he was always that threat.
So maybe in his whole career, maybe 2 years, he's been the number one wide receiver.
Well,
in an
there and the
offense.
Browns too. He was actually
Well,
supposed to
because
be
he
the number one there.
right, but Jarvis Landry was that offense.
Yeah.
Jarvis Landry was the guy there.
Well, that was just.
So,
I don't think that was because of him. I think that was because of Mayfield.
yeah, but I mean, when
yeah.
you're getting more targets, you end up being the number one wide receiver in an offense.
I agree.
So I don't think, and then obviously with the Rams last year is Cooper Kupp had like 2,000 yards. So
yeah.
I don't know if Jarvis Landry, to me, Jarvis Landry or not Jarvis Landry, Odell falls in the same category as like a Juju.
Yeah, but Juju's our number one right now. So
yeah, a top shelf number 2 in most offenses. You want him to be a number 2. You don't want him to get all of the attention because here in Kansas City, Juju's not a number 1 wide receiver. It's Travis Kelce. Yeah. Travis Kelce is the number 1 receiver in this offense. It's just he has a TE in front of his name on the depth chart.
Exactly.
So, look, I'm gonna make my point that I made earlier, maybe a couple weeks ago. I'm sort of content with whether Odell comes here. If he comes here, great. Let's see what he has. I have zero expectations for what he would bring to Kansas City's offense. I have really if he comes here, like it's great because any sort of addition he makes to an offense doesn't go to anywhere else. But if he does come here, I'm not expecting him to, produce any significance inside this offense. So what I would prefer him to come here because you don't add to anybody else's offense. But if he does come here, I'm also not expecting him to bring that much to the table either. It's a weird line to toe, but I hope that makes sense.
It does. I understand what you're saying. I mean, I don't expect him to be this guy that's going to go out and win us a Super Bowl. I don't expect any of that. What I expect is that he helps the younger guys with his knowledge as a veteran presence. And I think he would definitely be a red zone threat. And again, we talked about this, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago when somebody put out that he wasn't going to be ready until the end of December. We knew that he was going to be ready first or second week in November, and he's being cleared this week. So he's ready to play. It's not that he's not ready. It was a clean, easy fix on his injury, and I think he's ready to go. But again, that's the third injury, ACL tear, that he's had. Third in his career. So 2 in 2 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 in 3 years, maybe. But so you can't expect him to go out there and be 80, 90 snap guy because it's not going to happen. But you can expect him to be a 20, 30 snap guy. And that's what he did for the Rams. And he helped him win a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I'm kind of the same way you are. I've always been that way. Look, if he comes, that's great. I think he'll be an addition. I think he does add value, but I'm not going to be really upset if he doesn't because I'm pretty content with what we have. And honestly, the Toney trade kind of slowed down a little bit of the talks for a little while. I know the Chiefs, from what I understand, made him an offer, pretty decent one. But so have a couple other teams. And I don't think, even though he put out his tweet that he would go to the Giants or he would go to the Bills, I really don't think he would prefer to go there simply because he does not like press. I mean, he does not like the way the press treats him. And I think he would probably not prefer to be around someplace that gets 20 below and, 40 inches of snow all the time. So just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I know he does not like the press. He made that very clear within Chiefs Kingdom, and the guy's not even in the press. Just basically a fan page made a comment about him, and he saw it because he follows what goes on in the kingdom, and he went right after the guy. And the guy thought it was cool that he went after him and retweeted it. To me, I would have said, I apologize. I got, I just assumed what the media said was true. And then deleted, like said, I'm sorry, I'll delete it. I didn't mean it. But he just thought it was the coolest thing ever and retweeted it. I'm like, okay, dude, if you like making people yourself look stupid and pissing people off, and that's all on you. But he just doesn't like that kind of stuff. And that's the one thing that, going back to Tim, he really likes about our group is that we don't trash players. He said that, I listened to what you guys do. I've listened to your show. He said, I've listened to your show for a long time. And he said, honestly, it's admirable. He goes, most people have some negative thing to say, some off the wall, unwarranted thing to say, and you don't do that. And I said, no, and I never will. I said, that's something that I won't do. We'll critique a little bit from our little bit of knowledge of football. And, but I said, I will never trash somebody because everybody got in the NFL for a reason. And I think that's just the way it is. Systems play a part in it, but I don't know. Coaching plays a part in it. Who you're playing with plays a part in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a diva because somebody said you were. They don't know you. They're not in a locker room with you. That was a horrible team at that time. Bad coaching, everything was bad from the GM down. So I don't know. He went out of the frying pan into the fire with that going to Cleveland.
I mean, just for perspective, he was on the team where Eli Manning got benched.
Yeah.
Where Eli Manning lost his consecutive record streak.
Exactly.
For a game. That was the team that he was on, just if that adds any perspective to you guys out there. And then obviously, he went to Cleveland and that was, it's even with Baker Mayfield there and they were seeing some team success. We saw what came out of that locker room, and finally he was able to go to LA, which, speaking of LA, I don't think that he'll go back there.
No, he won't.
I think to me personally, it's down to only a couple of teams. I think it's Kansas City, Buffalo, and Dallas. I think Green Bay's out of it because we see what's happening there. I think LA's out of it because we see what's happening there. And I don't really think there was ever a whole bunch of rumblings about going to the Buccaneers, but that was one of the early ones that people were talking about possibly going to Tampa Bay. But even if there was, I think Tampa Bay's now out of it, as well as Baltimore. Baltimore was one of those teams that he was interested in. I just don't think that. I just don't know how he would get used there. Not obviously they throw the ball, and I'm not saying that they don't throw the ball. I just don't think that a guy like that who shouldn't be expected to be a number one wide receiver would put himself in that position to where he would go there and be the number one wide receiver.
Not only that, why would you go there and just be the blocker?
That just doesn't seem like a smart move for Odell to go. No. If you want to go and you want to be successful, the best way for him to be successful is and go into the offense where he doesn't have to be that guy.
Yep.
To where he
and that's
can
what
go.
He wants.
Yeah, he can go, he can get his catches, and he can be part of the group and go into a place, any of those places that I just mentioned, he would end up being the guy, except for LA, where
Cooper Kupp.
That offense is just, that whole team is just so dysfunctional right now.
Yeah.
We heard what Jalen Ramsey said. He was calling out the offense for not doing enough. So I don't think anybody wants to go there right now because there's so much dysfunction. Yeah. So going to Dallas, Kansas City, or Buffalo, those are some of the teams that I feel like if you go there as Odell, you become part of the cog in the machine to help, march to another Super Bowl.
Well, and you think about it like this too. If you look at like Dallas and their record over the since the Dak era, just put it that way. He's had some great wide receivers. He's had some really good running backs. He's had 3 starting running backs that were back to back to back, no matter how you look at it. And he's had some really good defenses, but he can't win a playoff game. And then you look at Buffalo, they get to a certain point with really great weapons and a number 1 defense, but yet something stops them every year in the playoffs. It's usually the Chiefs. Then, you look at the Ravens, that's not a good fit for him because he wants to be able to catch the ball. At least to be thrown to. Why would you go out there and be a blocker when you are a wide receiver? Because that's all
when you have an opportunity to play for some of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Exactly.
Lamar's a great quarterback to watch, and that offense is fun to watch. But I'm just
Yeah.
trying to be realistic here. If you're a wide receiver who wants to go and win a Super Bowl and maybe be on a team for a couple of years, and your options are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes, one of those three just doesn't belong in that same tier as a wide
Exactly.
receiver.
Exactly. And honestly, I mean, depending on, and we'll get into this a little bit, we don't know what Buffalo is going to be like in the next week or two. So, and he also sees that Buffalo has a really tough division, and they just lost to the Jets and they lost to Miami. So,
Yeah, they haven't won a division game yet.
exactly. So, and I have a feeling they're going to lose another division game, maybe two. So, and that's even if they stay the way they are right now. So he's weighing all of his options. He's weighing not just a contract, he's weighing where he's going to be able to put that ring on his finger, where he's going to be able to thrive, what team is going to benefit him the most as far as culture and the ability to get to a Super Bowl, and has, honestly, the way they sit right now, have the ability to get to a Super Bowl. And if I had, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Chiefs guy, but I think if I was out there and I was in the free agent market, I would almost look at the Chiefs and go, okay, yeah, this is probably the place I want to be. If I catch, for 250 yards for the rest of the season, or 200 yards for the rest of the season, I've got a better opportunity to go to the Super Bowl with this team than I do any other team in football right now. So I think that would probably be, and being a winning culture, and not only a winning culture, but one that everybody, well, for the most part, all the coaching staff and the players are just like a brotherhood. That's something that you have to look at too.
I guess the
So,
other team I would throw in there too is the Vikings. I
yeah,
know they just got TJ Hawkinson in there, so that probably hurts a little bit.
yeah,
But I think the Vikings, they are a team that's just figuring it out too.
yeah,
And, they've got a good offense, and he wouldn't be the guy there because they have Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson.
yeah,
So they have some weapons there. He wouldn't be the number one guy. So if he, if tomorrow or next week he ends up signing with the Minnesota Vikings, I wouldn't be totally surprised by that signing either. There's a handful of teams, there's about 5 or 6 teams that it makes sense for him to go. But for Buffalo, if you want to talk about their change of situation, so
yeah,
Josh Allen has a elbow injury on his throwing arm.
yep,
And right now, as the time of recording, which is Tuesday night, the Bills have been keeping it close to their chest. The media has asked him multiple times, or Josh McDermott multiple times, about the injury, and he's sort of blown it off and has not given an answer, which is fine. On Wednesday at 4 o'clock Central Time, that is when injury reports have to come out
yeah,
by NFL mandate. So we'll know then, at least if he practiced or not. But I know you, JP, in your youth, you had
Mhm.
a elbow injury. So if you
Yeah.
just want to talk about your history and what you know about this injury.
Well, what I know about this injury, what he has right now, given the fact that it's lingered since his rookie year, it really, and from what I've heard, it seems like it's Tommy John's. And a lot of people are going to say, "Oh my God, football players don't get it." Well, they do. Um, it's all about the way you throw, the angle you throw, how much you use your arm instead of your wrist, how much you use your arm instead of your body. And he does try to throw at some strange angles. Tommy John's is not a joke. I'll put it that way. It's a burn. It's not just a stinger, but it's a burn that you get, and it actually feels like your arm's on fire. Um, and it's basically where your tendon is stretched to the limit. Quentin explained it earlier too, but there's 3 tendons that run down there, and if it breaks away from its hold, and it will rub on your elbow, and it's already stretched, it will cause you immense pain. And I went through that. I tore mine. Um, and I've got the scar to show the injury or the surgery, but I was never the same after that. But also, again, I played baseball. So there's a difference between playing baseball and football. The difference really is you don't throw, you're not throwing 90 feet at 95, 98 miles an hour. You can finesse the ball a little bit more. You can do a lot of things that will maybe not hamper your career as much, The one thing that I will say is if he has the surgery, I mean, the surgeries have changed since I had mine. You're talking, 28 years ago, but the surgeries change a lot. They they've advanced, I should say. A lot of guys come out of it okay. Left-handed guys like me, we normally don't. I lost motion. I lost about 5 miles an hour on my speed, and I lost 3 pitches actually. So, if not 4. So it was a difficult thing. I hope he doesn't have it. I mean, I think Josh Allen's great for the game, and I think he's a great quarterback, and I would hate to see him go through that and then come back from the surgery and all the little bit of I mean, I don't think he has it nearly, because nothing's completely torn. If it was, he wouldn't be able to throw the ball at all. It may be partially torn. It may be ripped away from its, away, and it's wiggling around on his elbow and it's rubbing, which sounds like it is. And I do know this from experience that if you let it go too long, it will ruin you. A lot of guys in baseball that get it, they don't say anything, or they don't want to get anything done about it because they don't want to slow their career down. And when they do that after a couple of years, then they're done. And because it'll finally just tear. And when it does, you might as well just hang it up after that. But I had to, but it's just it sucks. From what I understand, he went to a specialist, and he may have to have surgery. And if he does, he's out for the rest of the season. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. If he actually has it, and that's what the problem is, he's going to have surgery. If he lets it go through the rest of the season, which who knows? I mean, the way they're built right now, he might. He might say, I'll wait until the end of the season. I can handle it. It's not so bad. Try to go through pain management. But when you're in the mindset of playing the game, you're going to forget about that injury, and you're going to do something or throw the ball a certain way or launch it the wrong way or whatever the case may be. And if it tears completely, it's going to be a lot worse on him. If he just gets it fixed now, he's going to extend his career a lot longer. I'll put it that way. That's what it is. I mean, it sucks, but that's just how it is with that injury. So I just hope he, if he does have it and somebody says, look, I would get it operated on, I hope he just steps out and gets it operated on, because at his age, he's got a lot of time to go to Super Bowls. His window is going to be open as long as he's there. And similar to how we are with Pat, yeah, of course he hasn't made it yet, but that doesn't mean he won't. I think he just needs to get it fixed and move forward.
And I think it's important for context is that he had at least a similar injury his rookie year, and he missed 4 games because of it. So,
yeah.
Because they lost to the Jets, the AFC has become much tighter.
Yep.
It did not look like that even a week ago. And Chiefs and Bills have the same record now. Obviously, they have the tiebreaker, the head-to-head matchup, but the Chiefs are now in second place after they beat the Titans for the number 2 seed. And if Josh Allen gets sidelined for even, let's say, a month, I mean, they have to play the Vikings on Sunday, and they have Case Keenum's their backup. So, I mean, Case Keenum's a fine backup, but that team is so dependent on Josh Allen and his production. They're more dependent on Josh Allen than Mahomes is here in Kansas City.
I agree.
He's not only their pass game, he's their run game.
He's their run game. Yeah.
He, for a majority, I don't know what it is now, but I know at least when the Chiefs faced them, when they were up head to head, so a couple weeks ago, he was their leading rusher by a lot. And I can't imagine that that's changed just by the way that they,
I think if I'm not mistaken,
by the way their offense runs. So,
yeah.
If he misses any significant time, I think that's going to be bad for the Bills, because unlike Kansas City is firmly in control of the AFC West. I know the Chargers are just on their heels, but it's nothing like the AFC East, where even the quote unquote worst team in the division is technically the Patriots. And it's not like, the Patriots are going to beat the Bills once this year. The Bills are going to have at least one more loss coming to them this year. And this is if Josh Allen continues to play. So, it's very unfortunate for the Bills. You never want to see a guy get hurt.
No,
I know that this is, we're rivals. The Bills and the Chiefs are,
but it's a
in
good
terms of
rival,
this
man. I mean,
division.
it's one of those rivals that you want.
Yeah, this is something that's good for the game. It's like the Lamar Jackson. You want to see him come out and play. They're fun to watch. It makes football. They make football better, and you just hope that it's not as bad as it seems. If you watch the press conference with Sean McDermott, he did not seem like a guy that was super excited about his prospect coming out of this. He did not seem very confident
Yeah.
in Josh Allen being able to play this week. But like I said, 4:00 Central Time ish, give or take a few minutes, is when the injury reports come out on Wednesday, and we'll see if he practices or not. And we know that all the media speaks on Wednesday as well. So if he doesn't practice, he's going to have to answer some questions. So we'll figure out what's going on tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it does not look good as of now.
No,
He's
it
got,
doesn't.
I imagine he's got to at least miss the game against the Vikings. And that's
You'd
not a
think.
game you want to miss because the Vikings are a good football team.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
if the Chiefs can take the number 1 seed back against the Jaguars on Sunday.
Oh man, I mean, it's just going to be. It's one of those things. I'm trying to find his rushing yards for the year, but I can't seem to find it right now. But I know he's got a lot. I think it was 363 rushing yards or something crazy like that. I could be wrong. It's a sucky situation for him, and it sucks for the team. It's like there's only a few teams that have never won a Super Bowl, and there's only a couple teams that have never even went to a Super Bowl, and they've never won one. They've been 4 times, if I'm not mistaken.
They had that run in the 90s where
they
were
went
at like
4. They went 4 in a row actually.
Yeah,
in the
they were
90s.
4 in a row.
But they've never won one. So it just sucks for them, and it sucks for him as a player, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But right now, like I said, you said, it doesn't look that great right now. Hopefully, it doesn't come down to what we've heard it is, but we'll just have to see. Kind of sucks. Okay.
Josh Allen is still their number 1 rushing leader. He has 392 yards on 62 attempts.
I knew it was high.
And Devin Singletary has 347 yards on 79 attempts.
I don't even know how he's a running back.
So not only is he their leading rusher in terms of yards, but he's damn near has the same attempts as their number 1 running back.
And I think he actually has more rushing touchdowns than the number 1 running back, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong.
Devin Singletary doesn't have any rushing touchdowns.
Well, there you go then.
Allen does. Josh Allen has 4.
Yeah.
So he's significantly. I did the math. He accounts for when the Chiefs faced the Bills a few weeks ago. He accounted for 83% of the Bills' offense at the time, while Patrick Mahomes accounted for 74%.
Yeah.
And there has been over the past 20 years, there has been no running back or no quarterback that has been accounted for more than 78% of the offense and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that was one of the points that I made in that Bills podcast that we did, was just that they depend on him so much for so much of their offense. So while the Chiefs' offense or run game isn't great, it's not Patrick Mahomes isn't out there running all over the field to get our rushing yards. We still are using our running backs.
Yeah, the only reason you'll see Patrick Mahomes run is because either one, everybody's covered up. There's no really plays designed as a quarterback run.
They don't do quarterback draws or anything like that. That the Bills do. They going into football games, they say, Josh Allen, we need you to get 50 yards rushing. That doesn't happen in the Chiefs offense.
No. In fact, they'd rather him not run the ball. They don't even let him do quarterback sneaks.
Because that one freak accident.
Yeah.
You pop your knee out one time.
Yeah, one time. I mean, your knee gets moved over 4 inches, and then Everybody makes a big hissy fit about it. But I don't know. It's I think a lot of the reason is too is that we don't need to. You know, we're a different team. We don't need to. We have a really good offensive line for the most part. Take Wiley out of the equation. We got a really good offensive line. I'm not blaming OBJ or Orlando Brown Jr. for everything because I know that, like we talked about before on our live show, 1 week link will screw up the whole chain no matter where the link is. So I think that you swap him out. I did hear that who is it practiced and has been brought up to play or may play. God darn it. Why can't I think of his name? He's been injured constantly. Is it Noddy?
Derek Nottie,
Derek
the
Noddy?
defensive tackle.
No. It's not him. It's whoever the guy is on our offense that has been injured so much. I can't think of his name right now.
Lucas Niang.
Niang, God. He did practice. He's been pulled up and he's practiced, so that's a good thing. Practiced last week, and I think he's practicing this week. So I think they're just trying to get him back into shape so he can get back on the field. And when it's this late, my mind starts to slip and I can't think of names. But I don't know. We saw something last week again when we played on our defensive line, and we tweeted it out that somebody should be standing next to Chris Jones. And who is that? Who played really well last week and should stay as a starter on that line on defensive side is friggin' Saunders.
Colin Saunders.
Yes. I don't know why they don't let him start.
You know, what's funny is that when on our last show, when during the bye week, Frank Clark got suspended.
Yeah.
And we were sitting here and we were talking about, well, how is this going to impact the defense? And we sort of came to the conclusions, maybe this will be a blessing in disguise because we'll get to see what some of the other people have. And my argument is that we'll get to see Karlaftis and see what he's got because he's going to be in the spotlight. We'll see what he gets done.
Yeah.
Well, turns out Colin Saunders is the one that stepped up, and maybe he will get more playing time.
I hope so.
You know, we'll get to see because the guy played really well.
He did.
And you know, maybe you know, when we said it was a blessing in disguise, maybe we were right about that, but we were just wrong about what player you know was going to stand up. And you know, Travis Etienne on the Jaguars is a really good running back. So we'll get to see if he gets playing time more, if he'll be able to stuff up as many holes as he did against the Jaguars going into the Jaguars game. So we'll see what happens. You know, obviously now it's a coach's decision in the end to figure out who's going to end up playing, but I'd like to see Saunders on the field more because the guy played well enough to prove he needs more time on the field.
Oh, without fail. And Carlos Dunlap actually proved that he can play more than 10, 15 snaps and still be productive. And he did. I know his age scares a lot of people, but he kind of reminds me of that, you know, that Jerry Hughes, that James Harrison, that guy that can go out, play really hard, no matter what his age is, because he keeps himself in great condition and continue to play, you know, 65, 70% of the snaps and be okay doing it. Hell, Harrison did it until he was 38 years old. So I don't know, man. I think he needs to, and I know they wanted to save these guys for later in the season into the playoffs, and I get all of that. That makes perfect sense. I fully understand. But
sometimes your hand is forced.
It is.
And this suspension, and the early in the year, the poor defensive line play, your hand was forced.
Yeah.
You had to show your cards a little earlier than probably what you wanted to, but you know, it's working.
It is.
And I would expect that Dunlap is still going to be on, I don't want to say a pitch count because I doubt it's like you're going to get the X amount of snaps and you're done. But I still think that they're going to continue to rotate the outside guys significantly, especially when they want to move Chris Jones on the defensive end because they continue to do that, and it's very successful.
Yes, it is.
But
well, I think when Frank comes back, I think Frank is going to come back with a vengeance, and I was a little worried when it happened that maybe he would kind of, fall backwards a little bit. I don't think he will. Frank he's a really good dude, and he's really playing very well this year. He's got his mind right. I think, there's things that it's completely out of his control, and people still give him crap about it. I don't know why they wouldn't last 5 seconds doing what he does with his illness, but it is what it is. People, they like to talk a big game, but they can't play the game. He is going to come back. And honestly, I think even with that Titans game, it would have been a different game if he'd have been in it. I think if he'd have been on that edge with Malik Willis in there, as fast as he is off the ball, I don't know, man. It would have been.
Frank Clark does. I know we give him a lot of flack because, we haven't seen the production for what the contract is, but something that gets forgotten is how good he is in the run game at just establishing an edge.
Yeah.
And his ability to just stop guys from bouncing outside.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something that, it's not as flashy. You don't get a lot of big plays from it, but you force running backs to stay on the inside where the harder your defense is.
Exactly.
So your Willie Gays and your Nick Boltons are able to clean some tackles up.
Yep.
And there's nothing more frustrating than watching an offense just continuing to run the ball on you. And Frank Clark is a big part of why the Chiefs were earlier in the year. This Chiefs defense is one of the top run defenses in the NFL. I know it doesn't seem like it.
I know.
But it is. And Frank Clark is a part of that because he's able to establish an edge and keep running backs from bouncing outside where you have less numbers to be able to stop running backs. If you're able to set an edge and keep running backs from bouncing it out, that means Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, who are just really good tackle duo, and are able to clean up some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw how well Nick Bolton played. Yes, he put a lick on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he did
on Sunday night, and it's just like
he got up way faster than Henry did.
He really, yes, he did. For a second, I thought Derrick Henry he was like off the ground.
Yeah,
like both feet were off the ground for a second. He made him go airborne.
Yeah, he did.
So
I loved it too. And God, Nick Bolton is just one of those guys that's going to be a star for a long time.
I'm telling you, man, I think he has a chance to break the tackle record.
He might.
I really do. I know he's early in his career, but I think if he plays his entire career here in Kansas City, I think he has a chance to take over DJ's tackle record and be the leading tackler in Kansas City.
It might happen. And I got to tell you too, there's not too many guys that come out. Well, first of all, there's not too many guys ever that are rookies that get the green dot because somebody else is injured. That very rarely happens. And he did in his rookie year. He got the green dot for when Anthony Hitchens was out, they gave it to, first they gave it to Neiman, and that didn't work out real well. So they just said, you know what? Okay, here, it's up to you. And he did it. And now he's got the green dot this year. He is in control of that defense. And that's pretty astonishing for somebody that's a second-year player to come out and be in control of a defense. They normally want you in for 3-4 years, make sure you got everything down, you're knowledgeable about it. He's already knowledgeable about it. And he's taken the reins and he's done a great job with it. So I really don't have any complaints. I don't have any complaints with the defense right now, other than I think they need to start Saunders, and that will fill a lot of the holes, even though we are one of the best run stopping teams in the game, as much as people don't want to see that. I mean, I can't believe the amount of people that called out our defense, even during the Texans or the Titans game. Granted, I mean, no matter how you look at it, we held them to 17 points. Doesn't matter who's in there.
Like 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
They had less than 10 yards in the second half in overtime, net yards.
Yeah.
I mean, this defense played amazing, and that's what I wrote about in my article. I was like, I know Patrick Mahomes, put this team on his back and carried him to a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, but this defense is the star of the show.
Yeah. It really was. I mean, they could look, Malik Willis, I had high hopes for him in the draft, and I thought he would actually get picked a little quicker. Just simply because the draft class wasn't that great as far as quarterbacks were concerned, and the fact that he is actually a lot better than people give him credit for. he's not a bad quarterback, and he proved that. He put balls on the outside of people's shoulders in perfect spots in that game. And by the way, I want to give somebody props. And I'm going to look up his stats really quick. McDuffie, rookie. Simple as that. And in a position that's extremely hard. He is, I have his numbers here. Where is it at?
I think he's only had like 2 targets. Now, granted, he's played 6 quarters.
He
But-
hasn't allowed, let me see. If I'm not mistaken, he hasn't allowed a single catch.
No,
In 38. I think it was 38.
because he was in there for 2 quarters in Arizona and didn't allow one, and they didn't allow a wide receiver to catch the ball against the Titans.
Yeah.
So I can tell you right now that that's a stat that's
Yeah.
true. Now
Yeah.
he's played 6 quarters.
I understand, but that's a lot of snaps to not allow one single catch.
Well,
mean, you
he
got
was the
guys that are-
guy that didn't allow a touchdown in 2 years in college.
Exactly.
So,
What a pickup he is.
which
I
is
mean-
crazy that he didn't. I guess you did have like more well-rounded, more guaranteed, like better, like Sauce Gardner went in front of him. So like there were some corners that like went in front of him that it wasn't. It's not like the guy fell into like the 3rd round or something. We
Yeah.
did have to trade up to get to him, but yeah, the guy. It's weird. He's the least talked about 1st-round draft pick in like Kansas City Chiefs history.
Yeah, he's 100% solid. I mean, I'm really, really excited for the rest of the year with him. You got guys in the league that are elite that don't go 6 quarters without allowing a catch.
It would be it would have been interesting to see how well he would have done against that slate of elite wide receivers where we were facing the top guys, the Devontae Adams, Chris Godwins, Mike Evans, like
Yeah,
those sort of guys when we were facing all of them
yeah,
to see what he would have done against those guys. But unfortunately, he had that hamstring injury.
yep.
You
Well,
want
I
to talk
think he's-
about the Chiefs getting another Sunday night football game?
That'd be great.
If you have not heard, earlier today, the Chiefs Chargers game on the Sunday, November 20th game will now be featured on Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
It got flexed and the Bengals Steelers game got moved to a 3:25 game. So the Chiefs have gained another prime time showing.
Yep.
And it's prime time Mahomes. He's must-watch football, and it's later. It's just in a couple weeks. The Chiefs will now have maxed out their available primetime games. The only other way this could happen, I have heard theories that the Chiefs Broncos game later in the year will probably get flipped out for something else because that game will probably not be that competitive.
Yeah.
The Chiefs may get somehow, some way, the Charger or the Chiefs Raiders game is a significant game. That game can be put as a primetime game later in the year. As the new TV contract, you are allowed to have 6 night games.
Yep.
The Chiefs will be at that 6 mark. You are allowed to have a 7th if it is the very last game of the year. So
yeah, and I don't know if they'll flex that one out depending on
I
where we're
doubt
at. Yeah.
I doubt the Chiefs Raiders will get that, but I'm just saying that technically, according
Yeah.
to the CBA, that is a possibility.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if the Chiefs Broncos game does get flexed out of prime time, out of that Sunday night time frame, and they put something. I don't know what other games are going on that week. I imagine that like Miami or some other more competitive game has got to be on. There's got to be a division game that's happening that week, that Sunday, like afternoon,
Yeah.
that they could flip to Sunday Night Football. That'll be more competitive
Yeah.
or more, not even just more competitive, more relevant
Yeah.
than Chiefs Broncos.
Yeah. If you're going to do it on, primetime game, it's got to be something that somebody wants to watch. And,
Right.
it's all about ratings. So, they picked a good game to flex. I mean, they really did. The only other game that I would say that could have been flexed the rest of the season may have been Seattle, but, that Seattle game is
That Seattle gets on Saturday. It's already a primetime game because it's on Christmas Eve.
That's right. So, I mean, as far as competitive wise, I mean, it's really probably the best game you could flex right now.
I mean, the Chargers are 5-3. Technically, they're a game and a half behind because we have the tiebreaker,
Yeah,
but they just haven't looked very good. They feel like a bad 5-3, if that makes sense. I mean, they
yeah,
almost went in overtime against the Falcons. They have
yeah,
just not looked good, but they're winning.
yeah,
So, and at the end of the day, the record is what matters. It doesn't matter how you win the games. It matters if you win or lose them. And, they're finding ways to win games. So,
they are. Even with
and we know
injuries, they're finding ways to win. So
division games are always weird. So, I mean, it'll be a competitive game. It'll be a good game,
yeah, and that
but
one's
just
on the
so,
road, if I'm not
yeah, it is.
mistaken.
That's in LA.
That's in
So
LA.
it'll be Arrowhead 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, we see how we play on the road, especially on prime time. So I don't know. It's going to be a great game to watch. We don't have very many extremely competitive games coming up for the rest of the season, in my opinion, anyway. But I mean, I honestly didn't think the Titans were going to be that competitive, and they were. So, I mean, I see Seattle being a competitive game. The Chargers definitely a competitive game. The Raiders, I don't know. I mean, we heard this morning, and actually Nick and I were talking about it on Twitter. We heard about Jonathan Abram prior to it going out, and we talked about it on Twitter that he was being released. Nick thought that we ought to go after him, but from what I understand, he has something he has to get handled first. So I guess it depends on how that gets handled. But I mean, I think he'd be a good addition. I don't know if they're really in the market right now, but he'd be a good addition if they did bring him in and he was, good for the rest of the season. So the Raiders are just really bad. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just they're not good. They all their games that they've lost have been really close games.
They've blown 3 17-point leads this year.
Yeah, I mean that's sad.
One of them was in overtime on that funny fumble punt, like
Yeah,
muff punt that got returned for a touchdown. Obviously, the one against Kansas City, and what was the other one?
last week
Yeah,
it
who were
was
they
the
facing?
Falcons.
Was it the Falcons?
Yeah, they were up 17 points and they ended up losing 27-20.
Yeah. So they've blown, it's the most 17-point leads that the Raiders have blown in like 30 years.
Yeah.
Look, if it weren't for Nathaniel Hackett, the Raiders would be getting much more criticism. But Nathaniel, the Raiders need to send the Broncos a gift card, a Walmart gift card, to say
definitely.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping him around for a few more weeks.
Yeah. I mean, that win that the Broncos got, I know for a fact saved his job, because if they would have lost last week, he wouldn't be here. He wouldn't have a job. So I see right now, the way I look at it is, and what I've heard, Staley is probably not going to be there next year. If they don't make the playoffs, he definitely won't.
3 of the 4 AFC West teams going to be looking for new head coaches next year?
Kind of sounds like it. It was close to Harbaugh this year. He almost got axed. And somehow, I don't know who talked, maybe, I don't know if it was him. I don't know if it was Lamar. I have no clue, but I know it sounds crazy, but they were going to let him go.
Here's the real question. So you have all 3 of the 4 AFC West teams. Is Mike Tomlin going to lose his job?
No, if he doesn't get to 500 this year, it'll be the first time in his career.
I know, but think about what happened with Andy Reid.
I know, but
you were a really good coach. You had just a couple of bad years, and then you're ousted.
Yeah.
So,
well, the Steelers are a little bit different. They're a little different organization. They're a lot different actually than Philly. They don't look at things like that. They keep guys around. I mean, they've only had, if I'm not mistaken, 4
they've had since
4 head coaches since their inception. So I don't know, dude. It's the Rooneys don't fire their coaches. They either retire or whatever, but they don't just fire them. He's allowed to have a bad season. He's had 15 good ones, so let him have a bad one. You
I
know,
mean,
it
because
just
you will have the Raiders, Broncos, Chargers. The Colts will be looking for a new head
they
coach.
already are. He got fired.
Um, yeah, I know. Well, they have
Yeah,
their interim coach,
yeah,
and I don't even want to talk about that.
yeah,
But so there's that one. Who else? The Panthers will be looking for a new head coach.
yeah,
Um, the Texans might be looking for a new head coach.
yeah, probably.
Um,
I
so
don't know about
there's
Carolina yet.
six,
Yeah,
six teams at
yeah,
least.
yeah,
If it goes the way we're thinking it goes.
yeah. So, and I don't know. I mean, Belichick hasn't even hinted that he was ready to retire yet, but who knows if he's going to be there next year? I think he will. I mean, he is 70 or he may have just turned 71. I'm not sure, but Belichick's, he's up there in age. Pete Carroll has no signs of slowing down in the NFC. The guy
Right.
runs up and down the field like he's 40.
I mean,
So,
and we know the Lions are dysfunctional, and
yeah.
he's been there a couple years. I feel like,
And they're
even
really
though
good about firing their coaches after 2 years.
right. So, maybe there's seven new teams
Yeah.
looking for a new head coach. If the Commanders get sold, they may, new ownership may come in and want to get their guy.
What did we nail that one or what?
I know.
Bezos, and now you got Jay-Z in the mix. So that's something. And it looks like they're the ones. I mean, it looks like they're going to be buying it. So I'm glad Snyder's getting the hell out of here. He should have been out of here a long time ago, but it is what it is. I don't know how well Jerry Jones is going to take that, but because he's buddies with Snyder. And
I stand by what I said, that I think he just liked being able to beat the crap out of him 2 times a year.
I don't know, man. They hung around a lot together, very strangely, but they were together a lot. So I think that they had a kinship. I don't know what it was, but they had one. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But this year, right now, the way it looks, the Chiefs are, if they continue on their pace in our division, I don't know anybody can stop them from getting to the AFC Championship game. And I mean, look, I'm not saying that, I want Josh Allen out, because I don't. It really kind of hurts the competition, the competitive part of this game, because
But we also have to be realistic about it. I mean, if a guy has an elbow injury and it's the second, that's the thing that really catches my eye. This is the second time he's had it.
yeah,
And I know it was 3 years ago that he had it, but if this becomes a reoccurring thing,
Yeah.
it's like if you dislocate a bone or
Yeah.
something, like if you dislocate your shoulder or your knee, it's every time. And not only did you do it the once, you become more susceptible to it. And
yeah,
every time it gets worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
So when you tear or partially tear or hurt a tendon, even when it heals, it's never back to its original point.
no, it's definitely not.
It's always going to be, even post surgery. I've had shoulder surgery earlier this year. I've got 3 braces in my shoulder. My shoulder will never be the same, even
No.
though I have those braces in there, went to physical therapy. I still do not have 100% mobility in my right shoulder as I do my left shoulder.
No, and you
So
won't.
whenever you have something like that, even if it's minor, even if it is just a partial tear, you're probably going to get scar tissue, and he's not going to have, his elbow won't be the same. And is he going to be more susceptible to these things? And, later, maybe a few years from now, or in 2 months from now, he may have he may be able to throw the ball the same way he did a month ago. But
Yeah.
is this something that's going to come back more and more throughout his career? And that's
And
what, if I'm a Buffalo fan, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. And honestly, we don't know that this is not something that's been bothering him over the last 2 years. We don't know that.
Right.
May
And it
still
just
be
sort of
something. Yeah.
popped back up, because if you didn't see the injury, he went to throw the ball and a Jets defender came up and hit him. He hit his arm as he was coming forward.
Yeah.
And so he sort of had that, his arm wanted to go forward. The guy was pushing back.
Yeah.
And so he sort of had that sort of whiplash
Yeah.
on his hand and his elbow. So
That'll
it might have
definitely cause
been,
it. So that'll cause it to reflare. So
it did not, he didn't just get the pain. There was a conflict with a defender there.
exactly. So I don't know. I just hope I hope he doesn't pull a Tua. I mean, Tua, in my opinion, should have stayed out the rest of the year. If he takes one good hit this year, it could end him. And he was, just like Dr. Amalu said, he was in a severe head trauma and he shouldn't play the rest. He said he should actually hang his helmet up. But if anything, if I would have been Tua, I would have just sat out. He's 25 years old. You got a lot of career left and you got a lot of life left. You got to really make sure you're okay. And I think Allen needs to do the same thing. I understand that this is the best team he's had since he's been there. And I get that, but with the exception of a running back, but he's got plenty of time to play. So I just hope he does the right thing. If they tell him he needs to get surgery on it.
And we'll see how good of an organization Buffalo is too, because
Yeah.
if you remember when Patrick Mahomes' knee popped out of place on that Denver quarterback sneak,
Yeah.
he went
He's
to the
ready to
locker
come back
room.
in that day.
Yeah, he went to the locker room. They popped it back in, and in the post game press conference, he said he felt good and he wanted to come back in the game. But Andy Reid and the staff told him no, you're staying out. We're not going to do this.
Yeah.
Some teams would have put him back in the game. Some
Yeah.
teams would have just said, "Oh, you're fine. Let's go. Let's get this." And
Yeah.
the Chiefs said no. And I think that was the responsible decision to make because, you don't know the exact amount of damage that was done to that knee.
Exactly.
So you take your time. You say, let's see, let's get all the information that we can, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And weirdly enough, by the way, they popped that back in on the field. They told him not to move his leg at all. And the trainer came out and popped it back in on the field.
Oh yeah, we saw he was walking off the field by himself.
Yeah, he actually jogged into the friggin' into the locker room. So I don't know. I think he just needs to, I think Allen needs to really think about the long term.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you're not thinking about next week or this year. You're thinking about your career right now because you need to make sure that whatever this is, you don't make a mistake that's going to not necessarily, it may not end your career, but it may shorten it. It may take away. It may not, end it or shorten it, but you may not be able to throw the ball as fast or deep, in the next 2 years. So you just got to make sure you're thinking about everything and you're not thinking the short term. This is you want your career to be as long as possible and to be as effective of a quarterback as possible. You got to make sure you look at this from 30,000 feet and you're not tunnel visioning for this year. And the Bills need to do the same because much like the whole Baker Mayfield situation, I blame the Browns as much as I do Baker Mayfield for that whole situation. I don't want the Josh Allen situation to be like that, where he's like, I want to go, I want to win now. And the organization,
they say, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody needs to take a step back and realize that this is about Josh Allen and the career and the organization for years to come, and not just, we got to go, we got to win now, let's do this.
And I think he's smart enough. Baker Mayfield was scared that he was going to lose his job to whoever I think was Case Keenum at the time was the backup. And he was worried about it, which, okay, I understand. You're worried about it. You're not playing well. And now you got to come out of the game and your backup's probably going to outplay you. And he was already on a tightrope anyway. And as we know, in fact, you can ask anybody, I called this a long time ago that he would not be there on his 5th-year option. And I knew it was going to come to that. And I still think he's going to be a backup. A lot of it's his attitude has kind of done him in a little bit, and he's just not playing well. I don't think he really puts the effort into, and it could be coaching too, I don't know, but he doesn't put the effort into really getting better. He already thinks he's there. And that's a problem. When you already think you're there, you'll never get any better. Always assume that you can always be better each week. Week in, week out, you can be better. If you can do that, then you'll be okay. If you already think you're there, you're never going to make it. And that's with anything. It's not just in sports, that's in life. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. I don't know if we'll have to find out in the coming days what the Chiefs decide to do with Saunders, if they decide to bring up Danny Shelton. Frank's only got one more week off and then he's back. So, hopefully they make it the right decision. I think Saunders is a great player to have next to Jones, and I think he did a great job. It's obvious he can play the entire game if they wanted him to. So I think it's just time. They need to make that move, and they got to figure out what to do with Wiley. If Niang is ready to play, bring him back, because I think Wiley is the weak link.
So
And-
the Lucas Niang, what happens there? He's off of. They pulled him off IR. They have 21 days
21 days.
to figure out what they want to do. If he
Yeah.
is not on the active roster after those 21 days, he has to go back on IR and sit out the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That he was pulled off IR, I think last Wednesday or Thursday.
I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah.
It was some point last week. So they've got 14-ish days to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now McDuffie, they waited the full 21 days after he was pulled off
Very
IR.
smart thing though with him.
So I'm just saying I wouldn't expect anything for probably another couple weeks. I would assume with the Lucas Niang, he's probably going to take up the full 21 days.
Yeah, I imagine. And then he's got to get back into football condition. He's got to get back into playing more, the whole thing. He's just got to get back into the routine. So, but they they have to do something with Wiley. I mean, he's caused more penalties and Mahomes to be sacked and pressured more than anybody on the field. So people can say what they want about Orlando Brown, but look, Wiley is the problem. And it's hard for the rest of the team to be better when you got one guy that's causing you these issues. I mean, Trey Smith hasn't looked like he did last year. Heck, nobody really has. And a lot of that's just attributed to the fact that Wiley is that weak link. So they got to get that figured out, especially when they get into the playoffs, because then people are gunning for you. So with that being said, we got anything else?
Oh, I think that's it. Don't let's not get into a trap game on Sunday.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Just because it's a weak team doesn't mean we need to play weak, and we're playing at home. So let's just go out there and play like we're playing on the road. I mean,
but we'll talk about more about that game specifically later in the week.
Yeah, definitely. But with that being said, glad everybody tuned in. Thanks again for joining. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out. Check our website out. Quentin's always putting stuff out, so make sure you follow him. And we will talk to you guys on Thursday. Peace out, everybody.